Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
What is up, Knight fans? Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, a special post-AutoNation Cure Bowl edition. My name is Jeff Sharon, along with Eric Lopez. Eric, I know I sound really happy. We are not.
I was going to say, that's not really the way I feel. It's a real special, all right. A special, not anything but special.
It was not special in more ways than one, but nonetheless, here we are. Post-game. This is our special edition. We'll have some post-game for you. Remember, you can follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and recently, Eric, TuneIn. We're up on TuneIn Radio now, so that's good there. If you get your podcast through TuneIn, we're on there, and here we are, post-game at after UCF first game in the what used to be the Citrus Bowl, Camping World Stadium now. First game in a long time. It's been some. What, Eric? About
10 years.
10 years, almost to the day, actually, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, this game felt like 10 years.
Right. But they lose in rather stark fashion to the Arkansas State Red Wolves, the co-Sun Belt Conference champions, 31-13, the final for Arkansas State. They jumped out quickly, 17-0, in back of a couple of special teams miscues. UCF really shot themselves in the foot several times in this game. And, Eric, it was just a rough go of it from the very beginning for the Knights.
It really was. Scott Frost said it best in the postgame we just came out of. They shot themselves in the foot. You had a block punt for a touchdown given up right off the bat. You had a penalty on the first play of the game where you had two players on special teams with the same number because the original player had his helmet broken, so you had to make a substitution. So it was just a weird night from that standpoint. Give credit to Arkansas State. They were the better football team tonight. Look, we could talk about what happened. It starts with this. The offensive line, Jeff, I feel like we've been saying this for 3 seasons, has had issues, and I think it's caught up with them this season. They couldn't run the ball at all in Arkansas State. 30 carries for 12 yards combined. Hamilton, 14 yards on 10 carries. And it's just, I know people are down on Mackenzie Milton, but as you saw, even with Justin Holman, quarterbacks didn't have a lot of time to throw, and I think it flushes them and forces them to make errant throws. It starts at the line of scrimmage. Arkansas State was better and faster to the ball, and Arkansas State was aggressive, and they wanted this game. And we said this in the previous pod. If you would have heard it in the last podcast when we previewed this game, we told you this was a big game for Arkansas State, and UCF had to match that, and they didn't.
And I was really impressed with what Arkansas State was able to do. They got some big plays. They had a 67-yard pass that set up their second touchdown to go up 17-0. UCF came back and got within 7 before halftime, thanks to a touchdown pass from Milton to Taylor Oldham, and then a field goal by Matthew Wright. It came off of a turnover that got, they were in 17-10 at the half, and I was thinking, as badly as UCF played in the first half, couldn't run the ball, could barely get anything going on offense, 148 yards passing. Mackenzie Milton actually attempted 31 passes in the first half. We were thinking, wow, for them to only be down 7 at the break is a real break for UCF. But then right off the bat, first possession of the second half, Justice Hansen, the quarterback for Arkansas State, found his receiver, the guy who's the MVP of the game, Sanders, on a 75-yard touchdown pass He finishes with 5 catches, 127 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and that put Arkansas State up 24-10, and you kind of felt like the air got let out of the balloon a little bit. Here's a key statistic I thought from the UCF defense for the game. The Knights gave up 234 total yards, 29 rushing, 205 passing. But they gave up 2 long plays. One was the 75-yard touchdown to Kendall Sanders, who, again, was the MVP of the game. And then a 67-yard catch to Blake Mack, both of which from Justice Hansen. So that's 142 yards on 2 plays. You take away the 142 yards, and the defense gave up a grand total of 92 for the game. But you still gave up those 2 big plays. They led to 10 points. You take away the 10 points, and UCF is down 21-13. They would have still had a chance all the way for the rest of the game. So, you're going to say, well, how do we evaluate the defense? Did they play well or did they play poorly? I thought they played extremely well and made 2 mistakes for UCF. And, from there, Milton tried to get the Knights back into the game, but they just could not get anything going on offense. Justin Holman eventually did come in, and there was a little uncomfortable moment, I thought, in the game when the fans were. Holman came in for one play because I think Milton lost a shoe or something. Had to come out of the game for one play. Holman almost threw a touchdown pass on that play. Then he left. When he went in, the UCF fans were cheering. When he came back out after that one play, the fans started booing again.
Right.
He did come in later on in the game, and Holman was not very good. He was 4 of 9 for 36 yards, was sacked twice, almost threw an interception that got called back on a replay. Milton for the game, 22 of 39, 175, a touchdown. He was sacked 4 times. And, folks, it's not the quarterbacks. It's the offensive line. The offensive line was not very good tonight. Couldn't run the ball. UCF with 12 net rushing yards on 30 attempts and gave up 6 sacks. It was just a rough night overall, like you said, for that offensive line.
First of all, the fans that were booing Mackenzie Milton, shame on you. You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. Look yourself in the mirror, and you might want to rethink some things. Did Mackenzie Milton not make some plays as he's had his struggles? Sure, but he's a true freshman, and he wasn't the only problem. It was a team problem, starting with the offensive line. And I think you saw that with Justin Holman. He had his issues. Well, this was just a whole breakdown. But shame on you. That was very disappointing to me, Jeff. I don't like that. We're both friends with Kyle Israel, who played quarterback. He had to deal with that when he was a quarterback. And it's just, remember, these are student athletes. And I was very that was the most.
And he was a true freshman. He was going to his homecoming dance.
It's very disappointing.
A year ago.
Right. And it's just very disappointing. I don't like that. I understand the frustration and everything, but give me a break. I mean, get over yourselves. All right? Because last year you went 0-12. You went 6-6. It's not the end of the world. I just want to get that off my chest because that really was very sour, in my opinion. But look, at the bottom line is this offense has got a lot of work to do. Scott Frost said that after the game, and they got to get some offensive linemen to fit the system and get better. And look, for anybody to act surprised that the offensive line has got issues, I feel like, Jeff, we've been talking about this since 2014. It's been a decline in the offensive line. We've talked about this since the McRae brothers graduated. And it was really bad last year. I think they overachieved early in the year, but then they had a couple of injuries, and they didn't have a lot of depth in the offensive line. So they got to get recruits in. It's just year 1, and that's just the bottom line. And then you had special teams breakdown tonight. And defensively, gave up a couple of big plays. It wasn't like they were bad. It's just they give up a couple of big plays. Anything that could go wrong went wrong, and Arkansas State made them pay.
I thought that the game that we saw today was, when you think before the game, you're like, what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? Sure. The way the game played out for tonight, I thought was the worst case scenario for UCF. Here's Scott Frost after the game talking about some of the exact issues that you mentioned, particular with the quarterbacks and the offensive line.
Well, Justin deserves to play, and Mackenzie deserves to play. They're both good players. They both look great in practice. Mackenzie's outplayed him in practice a little bit, and that's why we've stayed with him. Listen, I'll never criticize one of our position groups publicly, but it's tough right now to play quarterback. We have a couple guys hurt on the O-line. We're young on the O-line. When Mackenzie's in there, he's running for his life. We got to get a lot better as a team, run blocking, up front and on the perimeter. And we got to get a lot better giving our quarterback time to set his feet and throw.
Well, Scott was right. What did you think in the postgame? I thought, he he took a lot of the blame on himself for how things kind of went, I felt like, and he was honest in his assessment. I thought. I mean, he said all the right things, Scott did, but I thought he was right. You know, the way that things worked out. Yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot in that game. Can't cry over spilled milk. They didn't get the job done, and now they got a lot of film to go back and look at as now we head towards spring ball.
I think he also pretty much made it clear they got a lot of work to do. Got to get some recruiting, get some upgrade in talent in positions like offensive line, and he knows that some of the players on the roster are going to have to get better. And I think that, and keep in mind, I mean, now they're going to have another year, building a new class coming up, and then the guys that are coming back, you get another year under the system. So, it is what it is, guys. I know it's disappointing right now. I know the short term, it stings a little bit, and you're humbled. You lost Arkansas State, but that happens in bowl games, and I think this team just was on empty gas, Jeff. Let's be honest. This team was empty, and I think we just assume, well, maybe a couple of weeks off and this team can recharge. But football bodies don't just recharge, and I think you saw part of that tonight.
Well, he said, we were beat up heading into this game. He said no excuses, but it's true. And he also said, after this game that they were, like I said, quite beat up. In fact, here's that bite from Scott Frost right here.
Well, I think when either team's defense was on the field, it was the superior unit on the field. We kind of knew that going in. We're never making excuses. We're beat up. And especially up front on the offensive line. I don't think that was a unit where we started with a ton of depth, and we're playing some young guys. But if we carried the ball, I didn't know this, 30 times for 12 yards. We got to be better than that. We have some guys nicked up, but we'll never use that as an excuse. We got to keep working to get better.
I know that he doesn't want to make excuses. No coach does, but those aren't excuses. Those are reasons.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's fair. And people may not want to hear it, but it's facts. And it's a flawed football team. I mean, this team went 0-12 last year. So it wasn't like magically this team was going to be you were going to hide every flaw that you had from last year. There were some things that improved, some things didn't. So it caught up with them. And again, you ran into a hungry football team in Arkansas State. Blake Anderson, let's give credit to him.
What a coaching job.
There was a reason why he was rumored for the Baylor job. And don't be surprised. We were here tonight at this Citrus Bowl, now known as Campy World Stadium, and I'll never forget my first UCF football game I ever attended was in 1998 when UCF took on a Youngstown State football team coached by Jim Tressel.
Yeah,
he ended up doing pretty well for himself, right? I would not be surprised if 5-10 years from now we look back at this game, and Jeff, and we say, "Wow, I remember that Blake Anderson was coaching at Arkansas State while he's having success probably at a Power 5 job. This guy he will be the next coach in line in Arkansas State along with Hugh Freeze and as well as Gus Malzone and Hartson at Boise State. He's going to end up at a big job. This won't be his last job. He's going to end up at a big job. That was a well-coached football team at Arkansas State that was hungry. They were excited to play in this bowl game, and they wanted they were ready for UCF. And give them credit. They earned it. They deserved the win.
Going back to what you were saying about how you felt like this team was out of gas.
Yeah.
Scott Frost did mention post-game, and I think Frost right now is, he looks at across the sideline. He's like, that's where, Blake Anderson, the position that Blake Anderson is in, that's where I want to be, really building this team. And I think you're right that this team was, they gave everything they had. Looking at the season as a whole, the group that this particular group, they really did give, I thought, everything that they possibly had. There wasn't an ounce of anything left in the tank at the end of this season. And I actually think that is a credit to Scott Frost. One of the things that I kept hearing in the lead up to this bowl game is a lot of the guys, particularly the senior class, they learned to love football again. And, the guys that, and for those seniors, it's disappointing to go out with a loss in your final game, as UCF does finish below 500 at 6-7. But you touched upon this. Last year, UCF was 0-12. They come back 6-7, lose your bowl game. I get it. All right, I get it. No excuses on that. But and you lose your last 3. That was also pretty disappointing because at one point you're 6-4. But these players, I thought, gave this coaching staff and everything that they had, and most importantly, I think the coaching staff extracted as much as they could from those players in particular. And you're right, I think they just ran out of gas. This is where the recruiting thing is going to happen as we make the transition in personnel from a team that was focused the way George O'Leary wanted to focus it, right?
Yeah.
Running the ball 40 times a game, play action passing, the big uglies up front, to a team that's much more of the Scott Frost, Oregon, Chip Kelly style offense. It's a totally different philosophy of playing football, and it requires a totally different way of thinking about your personnel, particularly on the offensive line. That takes time. That takes not just one recruiting class, recruiting classes to get that right. But I think that when we look back on this season for UCF, we're going to think, wow, that was actually a pretty impressive turnaround when you think about it, that we were able to win 6 games coming up. Don't you think that?
It's a start. I mean, Nick Saban, I know hear me out on this. Nick Saban's first year at Alabama, you know what he went?
I don't remember, but
7-6. Played in an Independence Bowl. His second year, he went to the Sugar Bowl. You know what happened to them in the Sugar Bowl? They lost
that game, right?
To Utah, who was in the Mountain West at the time. Did that
Not only that, they looked bad in that game,
got
too.
Blown out. Everybody embarrassed. They were humiliated. They got beaten. They weren't ready to play that game. How's things turned out for him after that? Pretty well, right?
Not bad.
So the reason I bring that up, things like this are going to happen in bowl games. And let's be honest, okay? Let's be honest. I'm sure the fans didn't respect Arkansas State, right? Would you say that's fair?
I would say that's fair. I think it's easy to look at a team like Arkansas State in the Sun Belt,
sure.
7-5 coming in, and say, we should clobber them.
And be honest with you, I think there was probably some of the players, too, that felt that way. You know, and it's human. Remember, keep in mind, we're dealing with kids that are 18 to 22 years old. They're not mature. And some of these kids played in the Fiesta Bowl. And now they're looking at it like, Arkansas State, come on. Whatever, we're coasting.
We beat Baylor. What are you talking about?
And that happens, and that happens in bowl games. That's why you see a lot of this results. Just like, by the way, when UCF played Baylor, didn't UCF play with a chip on their shoulder? Yeah. They were disrespected. They were a 17-point underdog. They don't belong on the field with Baylor. It's all about emotion and motivation, and it's not. You can't just fake generate that.
Funny that you mentioned that game, because I remember that what was one of the big plots from that game in the Fiesta Bowl was the number of penalties that Baylor committed.
Yeah.
They were undisciplined, and I think that's a function of not being ready to play. All of a sudden, you get punched in the mouth, you get frustrated. UCF, these two teams committed combined 26 penalties. Arkansas State actually committed more, 15 for 140 yards, but UCF was not all that disciplined themselves, 11 for 82. 7 of them were in the second quarter alone. So that tells you a lot about how I think both of these teams came through. These weren't penalties of over-aggression. These were mental mistakes from not focusing.
There's lack of focus. And things like that, and that happens sometimes. So I think it's a learning experience for the players, for the fans, for the coaches. You know, sometimes you got to go through a game like this, and I think they'll be better off for this down the road next year and so forth. When they come back in a bowl game, they will be ready to go in the next bowl game. That happens. It happens to every program, and I wouldn't overreact. The sky's not falling, the ceiling, the program's not in disarray. It's just one of those things that happens in a bowl game, and sometimes it happens. And look, this team's got work to do. The players that got to come back got to get better. Mackenzie Milton's got to get better. He's got to bulk up. He's got to get some weight. There's some mechanics he's got to work on. But honestly, I think if the coaches had it their way, he probably would not have been on the field this year, Jeff. And he was probably forced in there once Holman got injured. And I think once Holman was done, and then once you played Milton, well, if you're not going to redshirt him, you might as well get him as many reps. And you hope that Mackenzie Milton gets better for this down the road. I think he'll face some competition from quarterbacks that are going to come into this next season. And I think that's going to be a very interesting spring for Coach Frost as he gets new players coming in, and I think there'll be more competition.
One thing I wanted to touch upon, too, the senior class, boy, have they been through a lot, huh? Some of them were around for the Fiesta Bowl. They've seen the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Some of them, some of those fifth-year seniors have seen 2 conference championships, an 0-12 season, and then this year, right?
Right.
And the one senior that was at the press conference tonight was Mike Rucker, and class kid, and he was up there actually. He looked like he wasn't taking the loss much harder than Scott Frost was, but because he was actually I thought this was the most interesting thing that he said. Here he is talking about how they really feel like, that they could go, that they could have gone out there again like the next week. It's just a shame that all of a sudden you look up and you realize, hey, this is it.
For me, it's like a roller coaster. I'm sad. I'm losing. I'm going away. Not playing anymore. But right now, my body feels good actually. Coach Frost in practice this week, he held the starters. He let us chill out a little bit and get our bodies right. And I feel like I can play another game. But I think my teammates can play another game as well too. So we feeling kind of good though.
So I want to congratulate Mike and all the other seniors who, like we said, they've been through some real ups and some real downs in their 4 or 5 years here at UCF. Wish they could have gone out on a winning note, but unfortunately don't. But we're going to look back in this and say this is the sort of the foundation year maybe for this new era with Scott Frost, and those guys made some contributions, I think.
I think that's the hope. That's the goal moving forward. Absolutely. You got to start somewhere. And players bought in. They bought into the system, and
that's what I think is the most the best indicator of how good of a job the coaching staff did in this year's. Look at how quickly and how completely the players bought in. None of those seniors mailed it in, and they could have. They could have said, "I'm not this guy's guy. I'm just going to do the minimum basic amount," and they certainly did not. Justin Holman in particular, I thought, the way he handled being the starter initially, then being benched in favor of a true freshman who Scott Frost actually did say beat him out in practice, bottom line. It didn't work out, I'm sure, the way Justin Holman would have liked, but he gets to go. I mean, I actually wouldn't be surprised to see an NFL team probably take a flyer on him because he'd make a pretty good NFL-style passer if a good quarterback coach can get a hold of him for 2 or 3 years and really work on him. So again, congratulations to all those seniors out there. We're going to miss them. And now it's off to recruiting, National Signing Day or in early February, spring ball right after that. It's like it never stops, does it?
No, and honestly, those are more important things than this bowl game. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the way it is. I mean, you got to build towards next year, try to get better, get to a better bowl game, try to win, to compete for the conference title, and I think that's what this coaching staff's thinking. And I think they've been thinking about that since really recruiting period. So that's going to be the next step here, guys. And Jeff, is going to be the next couple of months, addressing some of the needs on the roster. And, try to get better next year. That's all. I mean, really, that was going to happen regardless of tonight's result. Even if you would have won tonight, there were still issues you had to address. So, it's disappointing from that standpoint. I know you were disappointed with the attendance, right?
27,000.
I'll let you go ahead and rain on that.
I mean, I get it. One of the things that we talk about with UCF was in terms of attendance. This game was in your backyard for the UCF fan base, and they didn't show up in the numbers that I think a lot of the folks who were at the bowl game and certainly the UCF contingent were hoping. Credit to the diehards who stuck around toward the very end, and there were quite a few of them in the stands. But this was, I think we as a fan base have got to do better in terms of attendance. And I get that, there were the folks who put on this game, Alan Gooch, UCF guy. It's hard to put on a bowl game, and I get that there's, in some cases they may still be working out some kinks, but it was for a good cause. They actually raised, I think, what was it, $1.15 million for cancer research at this game, which is great.
That's great. That's the best.
And I wish more bowls actually did that as a primary focus, right? Delivering, raising funds for charity. But my hope is that if UCF does eventually go back to this bowl game in its backyard at some point, as long as the Cure Bowl happens, it's entirely likely that that's going to happen at some point in the future, that we show up a lot better. This was the week before Christmas in Orlando. We had a chance to really show up, and I don't think that we did as good of a job as a fan base as we could have. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what happened, but I was expecting it, to be at least over 30,000. So, well, as we wrap up here, as we finish up, look ahead to the schedule for next year, Eric. You got some tough ones on the slate. You got some good conference opponents coming home to UCF, I should say. USF is coming here, for example. East Carolina's coming here, I know, for example, as well. Your non-conference games include your openers against FIU.
Well, Butch Davis led.
Butch Davis,
Butch Davis will be here.
We talked about that in our most recent show, FIU, led by Butch Davis. You're also going to get Georgia Tech at Maryland. You're going to be, Maine is actually an FCS opponent coming to town.
Georgia Tech, by the way, September 16th. So you open with FIU September 2nd. You have a bye week as of now. In between the Georgia Tech and FIU game, you go to Maryland September 23rd. You host the Maine Black Bears on September the 30th. Conference games to be determined. Home games, UConn, East Carolina, Memphis, and South Florida. You would assume South Florida is probably going to be Thanksgiving weekend if they're going to continue what they've been doing. Road games at Cincinnati with Coach Fickell, at Navy, Annapolis, at SMU, and at Temple with Jeff Collins. So
that's three out of those four are going to be tough.
Yeah, no, not an easy schedule. A lot of home games, but not an easy schedule. Some very good football teams there. Memphis is a good football team at home. USF at home is going to be good. UConn, East Carolina, we'll see how they improve. And Cincinnati will have a new coach. Navy, obviously the defending Western champions. Temple, the defending conference
Navy's
champions.
Never easy to play anywhere, let alone in Annapolis.
How about the fact they're going to be playing two triple option teams in the schedule with Georgia Tech and Navy? How about that?
Well, good thing you got Georgia Tech before Navy because, hey, you see it non-conference.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go for the conference championship, it's good having that film already in there, and you can actually see, and be better prepared for Navy. At least that's the hope, I think.
Yeah, and it's going to be a young defense, too. They lose a lot of the players from this year's defense, so it's going to be interesting.
I think 7 out of 11 starters. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's going to be a young defense. It's going to be how they, Coach Shenander and that young defense, who's the leaders next year on that defensive side of the ball is going to be the question. I know you feel that the offense has to step up and help the defense out more next year because the defense going to be a little young, and that'll be an interesting question with the quarterback position, with Milton and the kids that are coming in. You do get the receivers back. You're hoping to upgrade at the offensive line. You got some talented backs with Hamilton and Killings to hopefully get better.
And more importantly is the fact that, how much of your time was spent this year just learning that new system from scratch?
Right.
Next year, the new kids come in, they already know the sets, they already know the personnel groupings, they already know the systems. Now you can work on fine-tuning what you have. That, I think, is actually going to be the key. And that's why I think, again, that the coaching staff really did, I thought, quite a remarkable job this year getting done what they did.
And I think the coaching staff will learn some things, too. They're going to tweak some things. There's some things maybe they're going to do differently next year that maybe they worked to like they thought it would this year. Learning for everybody. And I think that's the thing that I think everybody needs to take away. Calm down, all right? Take a deep breath.
And these people who are out there on the message board saying that, didn't I see a thread that said fire Scott Frost?
Oh, there's a lot of,
You are a lunatic if that's what you think. Really. Seriously. Now, I know some people are just trolls and they're just doing that to get a rise out of people, but if you actually think that, you need to evaluate your life choices.
Just take a deep breath. Deep breath. Look, we're at a beautiful night here. It was a beautiful stadium tonight. Didn't work out, but it's not the end of the world. Better days are ahead. So I that's the big takeaway. And let's see what happens. Let's give this coaching staff and let them get their work on the recruiting and try to build for the 2017 season. That's all you can do, and that's what the goal is now for the next few months.
And our goal for the next few weeks actually is going to be to rest up and enjoy the holidays and take a break. So this will be our last show for the we're going to take a break for Christmas week, Eric.
Oh, yeah.
Then we're going to come back, I think, right before New Year's because we got, some basketball we have to get to. We're going to spend a lot of time on that.
Starts on New Year's Eve.
Conference starts New Year's Eve. That's right. That's going to be big. We got UConn coming to town for women's basketball. That's going to be big. I'm going to be there. And when the spring happens, we got a lot to do. I don't like covering recruiting, but, we'll keep an eye on it when National Signing Day comes around. We'll probably. I know. I really don't. I mean, you guys know that. And I think National Signing Day is the most overrated thing in the world. But, we'll bring on somebody who'll, kind of tell me all the things that I don't know, and from all that perspective. And like I said, we'll have our spring sports coming up. Obviously, basketball, softball, and baseball coming up. Golf, tennis. They're opening up the new facility. It's going to be a busy spring for us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. And we started this in August, and it's been going great. We want to thank all the fans for their response. I know that we don't always agree. You and I, and certainly us and the fans don't always agree. I'm sure many of us are going to disagree with what we said tonight, but we do appreciate you guys at least listening, giving us a shot, and support. throughout the time, So the one thing we owe you guys is honesty about how we feel, and we certainly believe that we've done that, and we hope you continue and have a great holiday. And we have a bunch of people that we want to thank too before we head to our little holiday break here, don't we?
Yeah, first of all, cool to be out here for the Cure Bowl coverage. That's something we'll do in 2017 as well. From time to time, do a podcast from location, from events for some of the bigger UCF events. But thanks to the Cure Bowl for hospitality.
Alan Gooch and all of his crew did a great job, and hopefully this bowl continues to. I hope move up the food chain bowls because I think they have a good thing going, and it's for a great cause, and we've known those people for a long time since we came to UCF. So we hope that we wish them nothing but the most success going forward with the game. Also want to thank the media relations staff at UCF, by the way, who were pulling double duty. They're the ones who actually some of them were running the media relations for the Cure Bowl in addition to their regular UCF duties. Nate Blythe was in charge of things. Nate, awesome job. Fantastic work by you and the crew. Bridget Gale, who helped me out always with volleyball throughout the season. Thank you to Bridget. Thanks again to Andy Seeley, who's the best in the business. A lot of folks that and have been so kind to us, and we want to thank them for their incredible kindness and compliment them on once again a job well done. They're the best in the business, and there's a darn good reason why. Eric DeSalvo on social media, who's just a wizard and a guru and all that kind of stuff. He's amazing, even if he uses too many emojis. And I had to get that one in, Eric. I'm sorry. But yeah, thanks to all those folks who've been so helpful to us throughout this calendar year. And 2017 is going to be a great year, too, for UCF as things continue. UCF under the Danny White regime, man. Lots of stuff going on.
That's the beauty of it. It never stops. It's a lot of interesting storylines going into 2017. New tennis coach John Roddick, new building, and of course the
down by Lake Nona
USTA Center. New men's soccer coach just got hired. You're gonna have the Greg Lovelady, the era beginning of it baseball. UCF softball young team this year with an incredible tough schedule. Of course, we got Johnny Dawkins and Coach Abe in their first seasons in basketball. So there's a lot to cover coming up over the next few months and the rest of the calendar, 2017. So it's going to be fun to cover that, and we hope to give you some different angles to do that. So it's always been a pleasure, and certainly thanks to all the guests that have come so far in this first false year. It's been a success, and hope to get more guests down the road as well.
Yeah, we hope that you guys continue to listen as well, folk. You in the UCF land out there, we thank you again for your support. And don't forget to follow us throughout the break at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, also Black and Gold Banneret on Facebook. Follow us, send us a comment, ask us a question. We'd love to get more interaction with you, and hey, because we love to interact with the fans, and we've done so, before on a bunch of platforms, including the message board as well on UCFsports.com. And thanks to Brandon Helwig for allowing us to encroach on his territory as well. We also wanted to thank. Or tell you that you can follow us. You can download and subscribe to the podcast via SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, and just recently TuneIn as well. And Eric, I want to thank you for a great first few months of this podcast. It's been a roaring success so far, and here's to a great 2017.
It's fun, Jeff. Always yelling at you is always fun. So it's a good stress relief. But it's always a pleasure. And I think the main goal for everybody is that we're talking UCF athletics and UCF sports, and there's passion and there's enthusiasm for all UCF athletics. And I think that's always great to keep the conversation going and give a platform for that for the fans and unfiltered. And so that's fun. And that's the important thing. And just to keep support the fans through good and bad. Just support the programs.
And it's because we love UCF, and that's the most important thing. So as we wrap up here from the 2016 AutoNation Cure Bowl. Once again, fans, we thank you so much for listening. For Eric Lopez, by the way, on Twitter at
Eric Lopez Elo. Check me out, Tuck and O'Neill, weekdays on Florida Sports Talk 1080 The Team. We're now on in Gainesville and Ocala as well. We're moving on up. I'm filling in for Mike Tuck this week, and then Jerry O'Neill the following week. I'm going to be on the next 2 weeks. So it's going to be pleasure. Plenty of me, which is always good.
And you can also follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Sharon, and we always appreciate it. We'd love to holler back at you whenever you can. So for Eric Lopez, I am Jeff Sharon. Thank you so much for listening. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you again in a couple weeks.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.